Okay, so we will do the roll call, and I apologize because this updated it up there. Member Lewis. Here. Member Stoneman is absent. Member Rockwell.
Here.
Member Crowe.
Here.
Member Foltz is absent. Member Morse
Here.
and Member Cuddy.
Here.
And Chair Hicks.
Here, thank you.
So I have a couple new people. If you guys want to just, I don't know, you were here last time. Could you introduce yourself again, I guess?
My name's Dean Cuddy. I moved here about a year ago and applied to this board and got on it. I come from a city of Fort Walton Beach, which is in Northwest Florida, and I lived there most of my life. I moved down here because I've been closer to my family. Everybody moved away from there. So anyway, but I have 37 years experience as an engineer at Edmond Air Force Base, Florida, which is right north of Fort Walton Beach. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering from the University of Arkansas and a master's degree in system engineering from the University of Florida. I served as city councilman for the city of Fort Walton Beach for eight and a half years. I have been on numerous city boards, county boards, and regional boards over the years.
Dan Morse, a little bit of my background, I did 12 years in the nuclear Navy, got out, went to 3 Mile Island for a year, moved to California, 2009, worked out there at Pacific Gas and Electric in the transmission industry, decided about actually January of last year to move to Gainesville, took a job here, so my primary background is in transmission operations. I did 5 years as an operator, and then I did 5 years as a trainer before I moved here, training operators. Got a bachelor's of electrical and engineering technology from Ultimate University. I have a master's of science and engineering, electrical engineering from UC Riverside. And been involved with NERC, CERC, and FRCC. All in regards to transmission operations.
Good, you picked that someone with utility experience and transmission experience. That's good. It heard me the other night, that ever since I've been associated with this board, was swapped between engineer, lawyer, engineer, as the chair. I think you get an engineer for a while and they realize they're terrible, they anal people, and then they go to a lawyer, thinking that'll be better. And I realize that's not better.
And loan historian.
So, welcome. I'm glad to have you guys. The adoption of the agenda.
Any wish to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Either saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Discussion items. So this is a workshop, so fairly informal. Don't have a lot of members of the public here. The more public we have, the more I'll get more formal. So we don't have complaining about who doesn't have time. So we keep this pretty informal. I have a hard stop. Bad things happen. I'm not out of here by 6:50. So if my wife at a concert, so it would be bad. There's no intermissions. I'll be seeing. Hopefully we'll be done by then. If not,
I'll take it as my responsibility.
Please, please. I was half an hour late for lunch yesterday. I was told it's over. So that's coming to where I'm making this space.
Unfair.
I thought so. All right, discussion of the role of the utility advisory board.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I'll introduce this. So Last meeting, and remember folks, I don't know if you want a copy of the packet, or if you just do it all
I
at
got it right here, yeah, thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Those things are dead already.
So at the last UAB meeting, we were discussing a little bit about moving forward with the work plan and how to organize kind of our priorities so that we're most efficient as a board. And we have several new people that have joined the Utility Advisory Board. Me being new in my role in the utility as well, thought it would be good. And one more piece, Lisa is in her senior year of her time at the city, meaning she is going to be moving on the end of this summer and retiring. And so thought it would be good for her to kind of walk us through the role of the utility board and really assemble what the packet we have here of just all of the pieces that kind of detail out what the role of the utility board is, what the role of the utility member is, what the role of the general manager of the utility is, and just what the utility does at large, so that we can be most effective really at populating what we think is a good work plan for the utility board and do that together as best we can. And so Lisa's going to walk through that. Please ask questions. I mean, the purpose of this is really to make sure we're all on the same page of what we're trying to accomplish. So ask questions. And then again, after that, we'll move to developing or detailing out the priorities of the Utility Advisory Board after that. So with that, Lisa, take us away, and I'm going to run PowerPoint for you.
We're not quite ready.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Is this contained as a hard copy in our packet here?
The PowerPoint is not in the packet, but I believe it's part of the backup. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not in the packet, but it is a part of the backup on the agenda.
You mean a digital version
Correct.
And all that's in the PowerPoint are just sections of the ordinances that are in your packet. So it's just for ease of discussion, having fun. Okay, I'm going to start this discussion by stating it was less than 2 weeks that we decided to put this on the agenda, and then less than 4 days that one of the members asked for all the documents to be included for today's meeting. I'm going to tell you, do not expect the city attorney's office to respond to that quickly on a regular basis. You can't tell me. I prioritize my work based upon the urgent needs of the utility. And I dropped several priority items because I felt like right now is a really good time to sit down with the UAB and give you some guidance. Some of you are long-term and know what the utility advisory board is, but to give you some guidance on what your responsibilities are in carrying out your mission. So we're going to talk about this in the next agenda item, but in the future, the city attorney's office or the attorney will only provide research on topics of interest to the UAB, following the procedures that we're going to set forth in the second agenda item. But I want to make sure that you understand that if there's an issue of sunshine law or ethics or public records, our office is always available for immediate responses because those are very important items for the UAB to follow. Moving to tonight's agenda, in the write-up, I focused on the words study and governance, which are part of the UAB ordinance. But before we talk about that portion of the ordinance, I do want to talk to you about a couple of other sections, and Tony, that's the first item. So section 2-360, utility board guidelines, and remember Miles mentioned this at the last meeting. The utility board is expected to actively engage in the collection and evaluation of information related to utility management and governance. The utility board members shall conduct research, gather information, and learn from the experience of industry experts. The utility board may consider information from various sources, including but not limited to standards-setting organizations in the engineering and utility sectors, prominent conservation organizations, municipal and investor-owned utilities, and public and private research institutes. So your mission is to study. So the next section I want us to focus on, Tony, that's the next slide.
Do we know what page number that is?
It would be in your backup. And it would be,
It's right here. It's on the page number, it's just this.
yeah,
this
give me
page.
just a minute.
Here's the front
It
page
is page,
of this big packet. Unflip it.
it's actually starts on 4 or 5 and then goes to 5 or 5.
So, Brett,
It's right.
So the next important section is the utility board may request information and assistance from the general manager for utilities and other charter officers as the utility board finds necessary. But it's only at the discretion of the city charter officer that staff will prepare reports, analysis, and recommendations as the utility board deems necessary to remain fully informed and to carry out its responsibilities as set forth in this division. So see the dichotomy, the difference between the two sections. We're looking at you all and your expertise to delve into your different areas, bring your expertise to the utility advisory board and go outside to other agencies, not just rely on GRU staff to, or the legal office to provide the information that you will be using to provide recommendations and advice to the city commission. So there are, I've heard some very good resources within the room, especially on the engineering ends of it. There is the APPA conference that we're going to talk about in the third agenda item, and that's highly recommended. In addition, there are a couple of books, digital books that Tony has available in his office on governance of utilities and what makes a good utility governance. I would recommend that you take the opportunity to look at those. There are other utility advisory boards in the state of Florida. There are also other governing boards that are non-elected officials in the state of Florida. OUC does not have elected officials. Lakeland has an advisory board. Fort Pierce has a non-elected governing board. AUA, which is would be a fun visit for somebody in the utility advisory board to go to. And JEA also has a governing body that is not made up of elected officials. So you can gather, talk with people on those boards to kind of get an idea of what they do as well. And finally, the Public Utility Research Center, and some of you may be familiar with that, is located at the Warrington School of Business at UF, and they like to have subject matter experts. I think Mark Jameson is still there, heads the conference every week. So now that you understand what the City Commission means in the ordinance when it states that the purpose of UAB is to study, let's go ahead and turn to section 2.
I'm sorry, before we leave that page, just to be real clear, and this is
Okay.
legally what's in here. So let's say we want information, say, hey, we need this information. This comes up.
Yeah.
Do we turn to Tony and say, get that information for us? Can Tony just say, no, I'm not doing that? I've got things to do. Yeah, I'm not being argumentative. I'm just to understand, or like,
I think our next agenda item is going to help us with that. We've had lots of discussions among staff, not just the UAP requests, but all of the items that come to us and how we have to prioritize. And there's really only one opinion at the attorney's office that handles basically 850 employees can come to me and ask questions. I asked my administrative assistant to list of what I do on a monthly basis, and she, because it's so much. so it's not that your requests to Tony or to me are unimportant. They are. In fact, they're very important, and I spend, whenever I get a question, I spend the appropriate amount of time I don't just have an answer. So this agenda item, it took me 6-7 hours to put together, and then Robin's time and Kevin's time. So to answer your question, I don't think you'll ever get a no for information. I think that there will be times when you get the information and you hear but staff is going to recommend something different to the city commission, and that's okay. Because, you know, we all have different experiences and expertise, and we may have different thoughts, what we recommend to the city.
And I'll add too, so a couple things. One is, so the city attorney is a charter officer, the general manager is a charter officer, so I don't direct the city attorney. You know, it is city attorney's charter officer. And so if you have a request that's a legal request or you're kind of requesting it for the city attorney, for the general manager, I would answer it the same as Lisa. What I would say is what we want to try to do with the work plan matrix is really put what your priorities are and be precise on what the objectives are. And then I'm going to come back with, here's what that's going to take. And here's when I think we can do, staff can be devoted to do that, or, you know, committed to do that. And so that'll be the rhythm. And so it will be not, no, we can't do that, but it'll be, yeah, we can do that, but it might be the May meeting before we can get resources dedicated to do the work. If you guys change the scope of it, maybe we can get it sooner, or, you know, that type of thing.
First of all, thank you so much for your work and enjoy your retirement when that happens. We're gonna hate to see you go, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This was one of the reasons why I've done this as a chair of Wild Spaces Public Places, because what I found out that we were doing was putting extra stress on staff for information that was useful to us because we wanted to know, but didn't necessarily guide the decisions or the work that the commission was gonna make. So then it became, do I take these 15 hours because Carla wants to know more about solar? Or does Carla use the resource list that you gave us, learn some more about solar so I can make an educated decision and let staff do what they're employed to do for 8 hours a day? And so one of the things that I didn't want to see happen was us to have somebody have to stop in the middle of their work to get us something back, even when it's budget season, right? Not that the budget is not important. We need to figure out the budget, right? But our guidance and our advisement on the budget, right, should be informed and given to the commission. It's probably not going to move the commission towards, you know, a particular action, because when they have that and then staff recommends something that's not in our favor, if it works for the city of Gainesville and commission, that's what's going to happen. We as professionals have to recognize that and make sure that we're making the best use of staff time, and we're not just having them do all this work for something that we don't need to make a decision, or that's not going to matter in the decision-making process. Not so he can say, oh no, I know that agenda item is coming up, but I'm not giving you that information. And I don't think that's what they intend. I think what they're trying to do is keep people like Robin, like we talked about, her adding some more discussion to the minutes. With her stress job, we can click on that little link, or we can go to the city website. And we shouldn't be asking staff to do those type of things. That's why we have to be cautious, and I'm glad we have a work plan so we can discuss what that is, narrow it down. That way he's able to handle that massive staff over there that he has and all those moving pieces. I don't think we've been fair to staff and asking them to provide us a lot of information at the drop of a dime.
And I appreciate what you're saying. This is my engineering mind. Let me define the exact parameters we work with it, but I very much want this to be a collaborative relationship. And I fully feel your pain. Please, I had an email yesterday. It took me 2 hours to respond. I did it now. And sometimes you're not quite sure. Do they just want a yes answer, or do they want full and, and so definitely want this to be a collaborative. Are you sure you know what you're asking for? Or yes, let me point you in the direction of that research, you can do it yourself, or what it's going to be. I just didn't know. And quite honestly, in the past, I have felt the time who'd asked for stuff and just no. I have been told no by the previous general manager at times where I've asked for information and just to understand. Hopefully that's not the really is having that relationship. But yeah, we definitely want to respect your time and what we're asking for, and always let us know that it's an easy answer or a yes.
I think that's part of it. We can give feedback. You may be asking a question that you think is an easy thing. Lisa, like she said, she is so thorough in everything she does. It may be 3 hours to give a yes to an answer, and make sure it has all the caveats. And so we want to be clear on what that effort is so that you all understand that. I think the other thing as we talk through, and we're gonna get to, on item number 2, we'll get to the sausage making a little bit, which I think will be helpful. But, the other part of it is that to get direction from you all as a board, not just as individuals. I think it's important that the direction we get from you, just like we get from the city commission, is as a board. And so as a board, if you all consider an item and it's a high priority and we want to move forward to that, that's something that we will look at the resources to do, as opposed to just one person whim that we're interacting with the board, just with individuals.
And I think sometimes, like I may ask the question, how much does this cost? But to define, to say plus or minus 50%,
Right.
or just so you know, maybe you answer that one off the top of your head versus the 50%. So, okay, I appreciate that.
The next item is more, going to be led by the board as to what it is. We can skip to, where is it you want to focus your attention first? And this may be a common question as well as the UAV. For instance, the next slide, we're in budget season, and maybe budget is where you want to focus, or it may be the original three items that you have to look at: the economics, equity, and environment that you might want to focus on. But I'm going to turn it over to you all. I'm trying to discuss where it is that you want to focus your priorities right now in your studies, and then maybe we can help you put you in directions to look at, or you as a board can go back and look at your stuff and information bring it back to the board.
Yeah, so, I think as we get into item number 2 in the work plan, we'll kind of flesh that out. But as Lisa mentioned, this time of year, budget is a big part, right? So we have meetings scheduled. We've already had a couple of budget meetings. We have more scheduled in April and in May. And so that being a priority of our meetings and a high priority of a time for you all to discuss as a body and to work together as a body, because obviously with sunshine, you can't do that outside of these meetings. So that these times are times to do that, as well as for us to present more information or other information that's helpful for you. So for you all as a body to kind of give us direction that you want more focus on the budget because this time of year, and that we can be prepared to do that and have those discussions at that time. And also I can make sure the right people are in the room for meetings as we move forward as well. So, and then goes into B and C, the budget. To me, all of it kind of goes into C in terms of if budget's a high priority, let's put that in the work plan so that we're prioritizing that along with the other items that you have. And so I think we can talk more detail as we get into the matrix item next. And so if you want to keep going, we'll come back to. Oh, okay, so that's it.
Well, on this issue, so I don't know if you flip to the next slide. Yeah. So those of you who've been on the board for a while, is that a lot of what we've done is very reactionary. It's this general manager for utility items, so stuff that's going to go before the city commission comes before us. So just, oh, here it is. We're going to talk about that, and not that there's anything wrong with that. We've also had the city commission referrals. We want you guys to take a look at rebate programs, and we're still kind of dealing with that one right now, which to me is interesting, just to have the referral stuff. There's a lot of that stuff by the time, honestly, it gets to us when we have a couple of people, but if we go back and say, what happens a lot is stuff's very time sensitive. And so all we can basically say is yay or nay. There's not time to really go back and look. And so this stuff we're referring, we also worked on a policy, which has been kind of solid and something we may want to revisit. So, I don't know what you guys think on a work plan. What should we be spending our time on? And we'll be talking about that on the next agenda item.
Yeah, but I too think we need to think when we talk about referrals, maybe the part of the answer is connecting with the commission as to what their direction is and what their plan is for the utility. Because one thing that we don't want to do is prioritize a bunch of stuff and they got something else in mind, and then they're making direction and their direction is going to trump ours. And so, and then we're still gonna have to spend time on those items that the commission sends to the general manager that he has to now send to us for recommendation. So, I mean, I'm saying let's have the discussion, but I'm saying take that into consideration. And maybe this is a bigger discussion. I thought about this prior to coming, that maybe we save part of this discussion and see if the commission would accept this discussion at one of our joint meetings. That way, Tony is not sitting here saying, yeah, and we get in front of the seven, the faithful seven, and they're like, yeah, no, we got some other stuff we need to take care of, you know? So, and then that would be a whole lot of work we've done and a whole lot of expectations and direction that they've done for nothing, right?
And that's
So we need to consider some of
And
that.
that's a great point. We may decide we want to tell the commission what they should do with the general fund transfer. And the city commissioners may tell us, thank you for your input. We have no interest in your input on this one. You can spend all the time. I'm not saying that they're going to say that. What I thought that I had after we got
They say
through
match.
some of these ideas of what we're thinking was to sit down with the mayor one-on-one and say, this is what we're thinking, you know, but I like what you're saying, because that's just one person is at some point to bring it before a joint city commission meeting.
Let them know where we're kicking it out.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just want to go on record and say that I'm really pleased that we're having this discussion. I've been on this board for several years, and on many occasions, we're sort of given something out of the blue, bang, and asked to vote on it, 3 minutes later, and that really doesn't allow the kind of consideration that I think that we're capable of, and that the service that we can provide. And so I'm really pleased that this can help make things more smooth.
And the other thing, and I've mentioned this before, is when we do vote on stuff, recommendations, you know, even the stuff that's just coming, the general manager items, is that I want someone from the board, you know, not just better than just a yay nay, you know, a little more nuanced write-up of those items, just to pass in the city. We did it a couple times and it kind of fell out of practice.
And then too, as somebody who spends a lot of time going to meetings and with commissioners that I don't like doing, if we're gonna ask staff to also do some things, then we can take it upon ourselves to decide a person here that would say, hey, this is one of the things that's on our work plan. Where does it line up with yours? It doesn't have to be a big collection. We don't have to wait for that one meeting, what we have that every quarter. We can have a liaison or somebody, one of us decide, especially the person who is most important to go then do a lot of that legwork that we most time ask staff to do.
Here, David, can I'll offer an observation based on something you had said earlier about maybe the commission doesn't want us to weigh in on something. I used to work for the Public Service Commission, and it was always a joint effort. Whatever would be recommended to the Public Service Commission, we had engineers, attorneys, accountants, economists all writing together and offering a recommendation. But part of that recommendation was not just, hey, this is what we think. It's evaluating this side, even evaluating. So there were a lot of times that there were 4, 5, 6 different interveners in cases. And you would capture everybody's and give the commission all of these thoughts. And so if they chose, they may be going one direction, but they might read something that one of the interveners said was very important, and they might change their mind. So you have a lot of value. You guys have a lot of experience. And so maybe there's times when they need to hear something different than what staff is saying, or what I'm saying, and then what they're thinking. So don't be shy.
And I appreciate that. And when I was talking about having, at the end of, we voted, and we'll have somebody do a write-up, we may, you know, and this is for the group to decide, not almost like this was very important to us, because it's censored, if there's someone feels strongly the other way, that gets included in the write-up too, so you're not just hearing the majority viewpoint, because someone may say, you know, I was in the majority, but I think I have something very important to say. And this, I think the pace fits into this discussion from GRU's side. One thing that I appreciate is, you know, kind of what you're saying, Lisa, is that when we get recommendations from GRU, it has felt in the past, that a lot of the presentations were leading you to that recommendation. Where, like, there was one presentation where he said, and I felt when we talked about something dealing with waste, and he said, and this is controversial, but that was very unusual for someone from GRU staff to actually tell you there are two sides to this. because there's always, I mean, if there's any kind of hasty decision, there are pros and cons, just to really get the full. Because you know what I'm saying, it felt a lot of times like we want you to support what this is saying, so let's just give you the information to lead you to that support.
So what strikes me a little bit, Mr. Chair, is, so there's different kinds of items, right? So there's items that we're just running the business, as part of running the business, we're procuring something,
Yeah.
right? And so for those items, we've got a schedule, we've got a project coming, and we need approval from the city commission because it meets a threshold of more than $100,000. So we've got to take something to the commission. So for those items, it is, you know, frankly, when we're going to UAB or the city commission, it is, hey, we need this approval so we can go purchase this new pump so we can put it at the plant. There are other items where I think there's a lot more value to be gained that are more policy or direction of the utility that would be more discussion, collaborative. Here's all the different pros and cons. And so I think my point is things fall in sort of some different categories. And there are items that we're not, you know, frankly, if we're in the line of business, we're not going to want to have some big, long discussion and say, oh, no, we shouldn't do that. We should do this. But then others, as we're thinking of policy and direction, we should be having some of those. And I think if you all as a board could prioritize some of those where we're, hey, we want to really think about rebates and policies associated with that. We're not in a situation where we need this rebate approved. We're in a situation where we're trying to develop a direction forward.
Yeah.
Then we have that more discussion. So that was one thing. Another thing is we have, so you were asking about the city commission and where they're headed and everything. So the city commission, and this is where this utility board gets a little complicated because as a utility, we're part of the city. And so it's more than just a utility, but the city commission is moving toward updating their strategic plans. This is the city commission strategic plan. They have a 5-year strategic plan. All the charters are part of that strategic plan. So general manager, city manager, attorney's office, all of them are part of the strategic plan. End of the month, March 31st, there is a meeting where charters are meeting with the city commission to talk about that strategic plan and what's in it. So one of the things that strikes me is that after we have that discussion, it'd be really good for me to present to you, hey, here's the strategic plan for the city of Gainesville, specifically related to the utility, so that you know, here's what the city commission's priorities are for the city. In future years, because we're just kind of late to the game now, but in future years, it might be something that in December or January, you as the board want to talk about what should be in the utility strategic plan, so that as we meet with the city commission, we're giving your all's perspective as part of our recommendation of the strategic plans. So just some thoughts as you were talking, I was jotting down. That strategic plan tells you what the priorities of the commission are. And then we, as a charter, I'm trying to fulfill that mission of the commission, what their 5 main goals are. I'm saying, okay, here's what the utility is going to do to meet your 5 goals of the city commission. And so that would be something for you all to weigh in on in the future.
And that would be great, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and don't do it, 95% of the time, whatever you hear, you recommend good stuff. And but even on pretty boilerplate stuff, I think it would help at times if you guys just said, if you don't approve this is what's gonna happen. Right. Because it seems so obvious to you guys, but it's like you always that question, well, if you don't do that, our world stops, no one gets water, something, so we know.
I really appreciate that, Tony, because I often get that in the community because they know I'm a liaison for the community. But when I sit at my desk and I need to make sure that we got the funding and the resources and the stuff that they need, I don't need 50 people coming to tell me anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I need to be able to make some decisions and have the flexibility to be able to operate my business based on my expertise. And a lot of times we put a lot of noise in the middle of that expertise. And it just draws out the process, but it still winds up with the same result. And so I understand that we need to look at also the dynamic when we're doing a work plan. Some things are just gonna be the decision of the general manager and his staff and his CFO. Those are gonna be items that want our opinion, but yeah, that's just some of their things. I think one of our largest focuses, and we talk a lot about what we're doing for the utility, when we start to prioritize, we have to think about the effects that the utility has on its biggest stakeholders, our customers. And so a lot of our priority, yes, it is budget season, and just to throw us back on moving into the next agenda item, because you know you got somewhere to be. Yeah, I'm looking out for the wife, it's women's empowerment over here. So no,
That's my job.
So no, budget season is definitely important because budget season is part of the effect on the outgoing. So it's important that but we made some promises in the last year before budget season and before we even thought about some work plans out in the public, as we did some charrettes, and we said that things like environmental justice and those things are things we want to prioritize because they had a big issue in Archer when we was trying to purchase solar farms, and we had all this stuff to arise, and then NAACP stepped in, and all this stuff happened, and we made some promises. So I see that way down yonder on the list. It needs to move up a little bit more because we told them we would focus on that. So yes, the budget is important, but we have to remember the people and what the people are asking us for, and what we see on social media all day is real. And the fact that people are, I had to do it myself. Had to break that thing apart a little piece so I can put a little ease that way I can buy groceries. You know what I'm saying? So you're making some tough decisions, especially in houses that are not built yet. And we have to address some of these issues and make some recommendations to the city to use the utility to help fix those issues while we're trying to concentrate on some of the other stuff. So let's not forget about people. Let's not forget who's important.
So, Chair, I brought up that this is the next agenda, item, so I brought it up, but I didn't mean to fast forward. If we want to, anything else, any other questions or thoughts to close out on item number 1, and then this, we can move into this thing.
Anything else on item number 1?
I'd just like to say that we have 2 new members here tonight. I think this is particularly good discussion if you're brand new. And I would just say that we need to have a policy so that we get a new batch of newbies, that we have this discussion each time we have new folks arrive here.
And the other one last thing is just be aware, we're an advisory board. We have no direct power except our voices. We don't get to vote, we don't spend money, our job is to advise.
And maybe did you folks, did y'all get an opportunity to do your board member orientation? Yeah, no? Yeah, not yet. So perhaps that portion is a part of that. We don't necessarily need a policy for that, just to include it in that orientation process.
That's really good. That's good.
Before we move on, any comments from the public?
Nancy here. I think this is a great discussion to be having. I really appreciate all the perspectives and thank you to amazing staff and to our new general manager here. It's great. I would throw in one other resource that we used a lot when we revised the original UAB to the new UAB was Fort Collins, because I bring it up constantly, but they have a work plan and a way of organizing their utility board that is so well laid out. It's a valuable resource to help inform and maybe help cut through a lot of other possibilities. So I'm really happy to see this. So I'll shut up.
Thank you. All right, let's go.
Oh, and the that orientation is so important to go around to the different departments and also not to forget that when new people come on board. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item, the UAB work plan. The APPA is a separate item on our
Correct.
agenda already, so we can probably move past that one.
So one comment, let me kind of go over this real quick at a high level. One comment is Lisa, as the new board members all are, get on board, is willing to do a sunshine kind of discussion so that folks, I know, Mr. Covey, you're very used to it,
Yes,
being
I am.
on the city commission in Florida, but just to understand the sunshine rules and what that means and what you can and cannot do. So I think at some point, will that be just at a meeting? We'll do that?
We could do a workshop already.
That was a part of my orientation. I was gonna say, has orientation changed? Because I went to go see the sunshine, the attorney at the time. I had to sit down with him. I had to sit down. I went to all the departments and then I got some onboarding training. Oh, somebody sat down and explained all the acronyms to me and gave me that sheet. So we need to look back a couple of years and see what we do.
I did the onboarding for, member Pro, member, Foltz, I was gonna call you Fox, president. But, yeah, we did that, but it seems with 40 members, it might just be
It's difficult to schedule.
I use my time, use their time to all
Do it together.
have a refresher.
But that tour was amazing. Tony took me through the Sweetwater Park and we looked at horses and gators and all kinds of stuff.
Well, so I had a follow-up question directly related to that. One of the things that I got from the APPA conference that I went to last year was they recommended kind of a best practice for boards is to periodically go through kind of a refresher orientation. And so I was wondering, like, obviously we would schedule it around the new folks, but if some part of their orientation was being planned, would it be okay under sunshine and whatnot for other members to be part of that like orientation process, or would that be some sort of violation since we would be kind of together in a space?
Yes.
Okay. Even if it was noticed?
Yeah, can we notice that?
There was an interesting case out of, I think it was out of the city of Alaska, but where there was a school board that went on a bus and they noticed the meeting and went to different sites, and that was a violation. Even though they separated and couldn't talk among themselves, it's a violation.
And if you notice that you back with the public when you know, when we send that Jason, so you know, okay, I'm on a new term, should I go back and get oriented? I mean, ways I wouldn't mind doing it to see the new members, and
I mean,
I'm getting all up to get a lot of stuff.
and obviously we could do a PowerPoint orientation, you know, not a tour, but we could do like, you know, hey, here's the utility on a big picture again. Here's all the different pieces, and here's what they do. So obviously we could do that in one of these meetings or a workshop and get a lot of the information, you know, not a tour, but, you know, maybe doing that every 2 years or something like that would be a good, just a reminder of all that we do as a utility.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the fact that, I mean, due to COVID, Fletcher and I never actually even got a complete orientation of all the listing of places that we were supposed to visit and tours and things like that. Only a fraction of it actually was happening for us. So I know for me, it's definitely things that I would be interested in.
And this orientation was really, you just to sit and talk with different people and just get out. It was, I know it's a lot of staff time. Just move over, you guys can say that's a lot of our time.
Well, I
But it was
mean,
very valuable.
go ahead.
I was about to ask a question. Isn't there a process that the citizens of Gainesville use if they want to tour the utility? Okay, can't we individually as citizens, if we want to kind of dig in more and do a tour without having to schedule something extra, just follow that particular portal? What we can do is notify Robin of the days that we choose to do or whatever our day is. That way she can mitigate to make sure Fletcher's not going at the same time as Mr. Jacobson. But that may be an avenue, that way it's nothing extra for staff to do, since that's already a process that's in place and they take them to all the plants and stuff like that. So that may be an opportunity for the tour, and then they come and do this part, and the talk part can be done by PowerPoint, just as a refresher of information here at maybe a workshop. That's just
To simply be able to understand the monthly report that we each get each month, you really need to have some sort of visual image of what's being talked about, you know, in terms of, you know, recycling, or, you know, if a plant is down, or if, you know, there's new costs for natural gas or something. It gives you a visual sense of being able to comprehend what you're reading.
Absolutely, and also you can see other needs, like it makes more sense when you look at our Kelly generating station and look at the equipment that we're using and you try to project, yeah, they do need to spend some money on infrastructure because, yeah, this stuff is not sitting on the shelf at Target. You know, then we have to do a whole lot to get that stuff that from the seventies or so up and running to keep it functional. So that's helpful to be on site. That may be a way to do it without adding the process to staff.
So, Mr. Chair, I will say, obviously, just like everything else in our world, the COVID world changed tours and all of that, and we're really not back to sort of a regular thing. But I think there might be opportunities where we're doing tours with different groups that we could let people know, hey, there's a tour coming up at the, Deer Haven, and this is the date, and if you're available, you get for one member to join. So we can look at that, and some Rob and I can kind of think through with our communications department as things come up.
I think that's a great suggestion again to minimize you guys. When you talk about the sunshine, doing sunshine law training, could you do that at the notice meeting?
Yes.
So we could get everyone at once.
We can do it individually, it's just there's.
I think doing it is good. I mean, I've heard it probably 24 times, and it's always a good refresher.
I'm telling you,
Remember everything.
there's a lot of nuances in there.
And they give you a tour of a winery, you always get some free wine at the end. Here, you get some free electricity at the end.
You get some swag from the department, so get some swag, just a sandwich here and there, little cupcake every now and then, get some stuff.
I usually heard that.
So the priority list, like I talked during the last item, the priorities are all very important. These are things that we're here to focus on. I don't have a problem with that in developing a work plan, but for me, things like when we say lowering bills, right, that is that. So, yeah, that's why a big question mark right there. Right? So that is a whole deep thing that's gonna just be a lot. I think environmental justice should be up there, and if we focus to, I saw something on conservation. I'm on the fence about rebates, especially during a time when we're talking about budget and trying to get some money. Not that I'm against rebates, but the timing. One of the reasons why, and I remember the first budget discussion that I got, we made reference back to some rebates that the city commission gave back during a time where we had made quite a bit of money. And they wanted to return that money immediately to the customers. And then that affected our reserves. And then we ran into some issues, and then it became problematic. So one of the things that, and this may not be popular in the community, but as far as a business aspect, it makes sense to have the rebates discussions. Not that they're not important. Let's do some more research. Let's learn some more stuff after APPA, put that further down on the list. And let's talk about it during another time when we are financially stable to give that back. We can come up with anything we want to. Right now, nobody's gonna get any money back because our reserves have not been. And at the time, I think they were close, they had depleted from like 250 million down to like 55. So it was some ridiculous amount, and we were still talking about how do we return money? And that's not a viable question for a utility that has some financial issues. So
I appreciate what you're saying, because we do need to kind of prioritize this stuff. Now, the rebate question, that falls into one of the things that Lisa was talking about, of things we're directed to do by the city commission. And so I feel like that's one I want to probably prioritize. Not to say we have to spend a ton of time on it, and we may come back and just say, no more rebates, or well, we need to answer that one, because we were specifically asked for that one by the city commission. So I don't want them to think, oh, yes, the UAB stuff, but we don't come back.
let me ask you a question. When is our next joint city commission meeting, Robin?
You have one in May, I believe.
But it's a budget, it's specifically a budget
It
meeting.
is the budget.
Right, so that's, okay, so, and then the budget is typically finalized when? 'Cause every meeting is gonna be a budget meeting until they're done with that. That's just how it works.
We won't get finalized till September.
Right, around September, October. So when I say, kind of move that down, we can start in our workshop, start discussing some other things and start getting that ready around the midsummer or whatever. And individually, we can still be, kind of looking at different rebate programs. I'm gonna talk some during talking about the public power meeting, but we can also, be kind of conducting our research, doing our studying during this time and kind of discuss that later.
Well, let me ask on the rebate question. Let's say, we say, okay, no more natural gas rebates. But can that happen just at any time? Does that need to go into the budget? If so, is there a timing aspect to rebates?
Yeah, so, if we got a directive from the city commission to stop rebates, we would stop natural gas rebates. So we have we have budget for items like that, but if we were given direction by the city commission to do it, we could just stop doing it.
Well, how about the other? We said, okay, we're gonna do whatever, some rebate X. Does that need to happen at
If we're
budget time?
implementing like a new rebate, then yeah, we would have to wait till a budget cycle where we can adjust the budget dollars. So like fiscal year 23 starts October 1st. So if we made a decision now, like we would have to make that decision pretty soon for next fiscal year because we're budgeting right now and implementing the rates to meet that budget at this time.
And I guess
So would that make the rebate question then important for budget season? Since that is something.
If we were gonna implement new rebates, we would, I don't wanna say it's too late, but it's almost too late now for fiscal year 23 because we're already we're already running the models of what fiscal year 23.
And I guess that's like, if you guys say it's too late, then that makes it an easy answer. If it's not, then we need to give an answer. So it sounds like, it's probably easy, the natural gas one, if we're saying, let's not do the rebate, you guys go, oh, look, we have money, no problem there. That's not quite as time sensitive. And just for that, one idea I've had on a rebate, and this will be a question for GRU, is on electric vehicles. I thought that was something that we could do is to set up a time of use for electric vehicles for charging. I'll make this brief. Right now, if I come home, I plug in my electric vehicle, that's not good for GRU. I'm not sure if you're losing money on it, but I'm giving you a peak. I'm pulling 60 amps at the worst time possible. So we'd be interested to see, would GRU make more money by putting a time of use in and encouraging me to plug in the middle, or to charge in the middle of the night? Is that actually a benefit to GRU? So that's the kind of thing I'm personally thinking, which would be a budget positive. I'm not sure it's even a rebate at that point.
I just want to say for the benefit of the new members, we've spent quite a bit of time in months over the last year talking about electric vehicles. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about rebates. So we've really discussed those in great length. Also, before that, we spent a lot of time talking about what we wanted for the IRB, the Integrated Resource Plan. So that's going to come up again on this list. So it's no fair to come into a movie in the middle of the movie, but still, there's a lot of back and forth that preceded those.
This is an ongoing show. All this came in the middle of the movie.
Everyone is coming in.
Everybody's came in the middle of the movie.
So, Mr. Chair, let me step back for 1 second and kind of remind us what we're trying to do with this matrix. So real quick, what we're trying to do is when an issue is raised, obviously put the date that it's raised. And if you guys really like this, Lisa, a lot of this was Lisa's idea. If you don't like it, you can blame it on me. So the date of when it comes up, what the initiative is, so a quick sort of description of what it is. Column D, the UAB Think Tank and Clear Objectives, is really you all working together as a board, doing research, doing study, as Lisa was saying, on whatever the topic is, and then trying to come together as a board of a clear objective of what you're asking staff to do. So if there's something that you want us, hey, we we want you, staff, to talk about how do we ramp down natural gas rebates and what the impact would be financially if we do that, and, you know, all of that. So you're very, very clear on the objective of what it is. You guys do all that discussion and that work. Then what we try to do here is then identify precisely what the scope of work is for GRU or for legal. We'll estimate the effort of what that is, and then we'll also say, we think we can accomplish this at the April UAB meeting. So that's the idea of these columns. So you all work on, just like the discussion you're having today, except the idea would be filling in this block, like on lowering bills, for instance, filling in this block of, here's precisely the scope of what we would like staff to do regarding that, based on our research and our study and our knowledge and expertise. Here's what we would like to come back with. Or we don't need staff to come back with anything. We just want to have a discussion on this topic and further give direction. So I just want to remind everybody what that is. And then the idea here would be, you also would identify, like you're having the discussion on what the priorities are on here and what dates we want to kind of get those back to us by.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's well done. So maybe we can move through this very quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So my thoughts on this are, I mean, this is already a pretty sizable list. There are quite a few bullet points here. And going back to what remember Miles said earlier about, you know, we're appointed by the city commission to advise them on decisions that they have to make and possibly throw out an idea or two. I think it might be a good idea to kick this initiative plan to the city commission, let them look at it and tell us which of, if any of these items they would like us to focus on. And they may, and maybe even say, hey, you know what, there's no point even wasting time on this, that, or the other, because we're not gonna be looking at that. And they may even have one or two new things to add to it that they know is coming up and want to give us a heads up on. I'm definitely all for getting a little advance notice on things that, big decisions that are gonna, instead of just getting hit with it at a UAB meeting. So that would be my recommendation is maybe, I mean, we can certainly still discuss it a little bit ourselves, and I think we all kind of know from previous meetings who's hot button items are whose, but I really think we should get good direction from the city commission.
No, and I think I would support that. I think we should take a first cut at it. Maybe if everyone's okay with it, let's just go down the list real quick. You know, APPA, we'll talk about that one in a second. So general manager selection, UAB advisement. I don't know if they're, I like the idea.
I'm doing what?
As they're interviewing candidates for general manager, to say, hey, let's talk to the UAB. We have to deal with them. You know, as we've seen recently, they're very big. It changes our world, who the general manager is and how they work with the UAB. So that's the one employee that the city commission chooses. You made the point, Carl, we don't need to be involved in every GRU hiring decision.
Here's my thought. It is very difficult if you watch city commission meetings for the 7 of them to come up with a decision, okay? So then we start bringing in 5 new people, prospects or whatever. And then it's difficult for us without various experience to sometimes come together on a thing. What we're looking for in an employee is gonna be a lot different. So then are we then gonna decide that we're gonna make a recommendation based on what? On them wanting our input, on our basic individuality? What standards are we? It has to be something, to me, if we're gonna say, hey, we wanna put our input on choosing the general manager, we should already have a standard and criteria by which we are all collectively judging. So we should have to have said here's what's important to the UAB. Now we're gonna discuss what's important to us. These are our metrics and this is what we're gonna measure that new employee by. Not not sitting here with 7 different people saying, this is what's important to me, or this is what's important to me. That becomes something totally different. And when we set that precedent, and we will, people are gonna jump on that, and every time they get ready to hire some advisory board or somebody who has the same power as us to advise, not govern, is gonna come and say, I wanna select that person. I wanted to select the new city manager because they affect the community. Of course, nobody asked us. Why? Because they have 25 community organizations that's gonna have 25 different opinions.
I'm gonna
Why
vote
would
for the
you
one
do
that walks on water.
Right. Well, we're waiting on him to return.
I was just gonna say, there's only one of those.
When he come back, we'll have this the whole thing figured out. Until then, some processes, I think we can do more harm trying to do good.
Well, I think this would be a good one to see if things stay. Yeah,
They
they want our opinion.
might not care about our opinion. on
So like, I do a lot of hiring, a lot of interviewing with people, and I like to hear different voices. If I were a city commissioner, I would want to hear if you even said, he was great with you guys, but he was a jerk to us.
Right, so
You
is
do.
this one of those things before we send this into a work plan, so to speak?
Yeah.
Let's do that after our May meeting. And even though it is a budget meeting, during general comment, let's just throw that out there when we have our member comments. And let's see the reaction of the 7 members when we come into how and when they're hiring. And then they have to make sure that as the state, that's something that they can take and that they don't open up Pandora's box when it comes to all the other agencies, organizations, and charter officers that they have to hire. You know, a lot of people fell out about the equity director and other people, and they just didn't want people's outside opinion.
No, that's good. You were making a good point. It's
Too many.
easy to go, yeah, this would be great, and from their point of view, that would just be a political.
That would be chaos.
disaster.
That would be
All right,
chaos.
so the next one, addressing large budget
So
questions.
do we want to do anything? So I started to type a few things here. I don't know if it's the right thing. Do you all want to consider it more, or do you want to just bring it up at the May?
I think we can bring it up.
I think we'll bring it up.
We
in front
need
of
to
the
have a
commission.
green light from the city commission before we charge for that.
I'll probably bring it up with the mayor, get his initial input on it, just to see if he.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, following our last commission meeting, and I saw a commissioner out in the public, and, you know, we were talking about the hiring of the new general manager, how we would have one in 23. And I asked them how much community engagement would be done on the hiring of the general manager. And she was like, are you kidding me? And so that is how I feel about this, the lot of us sitting here, because it just wouldn't make sense. And if I were a commissioner, it would be definitely a no for me.
It'll be interesting to hear their thoughts on that one.
Yeah.
So addressing large budget questions, do we have anything specific we want on that one? That one's a very vague one.
Well, I'd like to have a moment to address that. We had 2 presentations, as I recall, on budget. And I think a lot of us thought that those presentations were very valuable, very helpful, good background material. I had the opportunity to talk with the woman who presented it. Right now, I can't remember her name. Claudia. And she was explaining to me something that I thought was very valuable in this regard. She was talking about the amount of money owed through bonding over time, how that would decrease as you pay off the bonds. But the IRP says we have 5 plants that are approaching their end of longevity and are going to have to be replaced. And she said that replacement money comes on top of the mortgage that is already owed. And so you have a stepwise progression of increased mortgage payment each month, each year, which is a very frightful thing when you think about the total amount of bonding that the city has in terms of GRU. So in that regard, I'd like to have part of the discussion at least oriented toward what I just said, because when she explained that to me, that really raised a lot of exclamation points, I'll tell you.
So I think for this, I'm not specific. I think we'll have to come up with like
Right.
a very specific let's come up with specifics of exactly what we're gonna ask.
Mr. Fletcher, I think what we're doing is looking at the topics themselves and the work plan itself and not necessarily discussing the whole topic. The AARP is a separate topic on our agenda already. But the rest of them, I think we kind of prioritize, and were you suggesting that he discuss that question right now?
It seemed to me extremely relevant because a lot of our discussions sort of assume a desert island where, you know, you don't owe anybody any money at all, and you just go out to New York City and get a bunch of money from mortgage, and then you live happily ever after. That ain't the way it works.
Right.
And we've got reality to deal with here. And what I just described, in my judgment, is the 900-pound gorilla on our backs.
Okay, that
He's
is.
saying he wants that to be the focus of this discussion.
At least a good share of it.
Which,
So.
He wants that to be one of the priorities that we list here.
I think he's narrowing down this initiative
Oh, he's narrowing
To-
down, addressing a large budget question
from a
as
large budget to
what happens
specific
with
budget
that.
question.
Okay, all right.
So let me, Mr. Chair, let me kind of talk through. So in January, we looked at debt overview, which I think is addressing some of members' comments. February, we talked about the rating agencies, which also kind of addressed some of those topics of how the rating agencies rate us and the amount the leverage has on the rating. In April, we're going to be bringing a budget presentation to you all that talks about sales and revenue forecasts. So kind of going forward, what are we looking at in terms of sales and revenue? Then in May, beginning May 16th, May 16th, we're going to be talking about the O&M and capital budget. So kind of what our next couple of years look like in terms of our O&M budget, our capital budget planning. And then we're also going to touch on the fuels budget and the fuel adjustment and all of that. Let me just make sure I capture everything. So that's in May. And then in June, so that's it with the UAB. In June, we have a follow-up meeting with the city commission, which is kind of like final, here's all the budget stuff that we've talked about, here's the recommendation, and to give us direction. And then what Robin was listing was what happens in September as the final step is really the ordinance. So it's the city commission adopting the ordinances that implement all the discussions for budget. So I just wanted to give a picture of what we are going to do this year. So if there's something additional or we want additional focus on something, that should be a priority for you all. You all define what you're additionally looking for in addition to what our plan is. And then we'll figure out if we can fit that in or where we can fit that in.
And just for the sake of time, and you guys don't have to stop, because I have to stop, we have a light here, you can take over. But for items like this, I'd say, you know, if you want to come back at the next UAB meeting and we get your member comment, I think that's gonna be our time to say something like this. Here's something specific you would like GRU to do. As a board, we'll make that as a motion, as the board will vote and request the GRU add that, and they can respond.
I thought we were, instead of doing that, I thought we were put here. Okay, all right.
I mean, there's some things that we can do right now,
Yeah,
maybe,
some things,
but something,
yeah.
you know,
You're
like
right.
lower rates, you know, we don't have, I don't have time in 9 minutes.
So I had just as we're prioritizing the budget question, yes, that's gonna be towards the top. We already talked about that. So lowering bills, I think we should put on as a ongoing topic because that should be a focus as we're looking at, you know, how we're doing conservation programs and how we're doing. So lowering the utility bill for the customer is going to be one thing. Environmental justice and making sure that the rate when I hear lowering bills, it assumes to me that we got to do something to just lower the bill. And we can lower the bills across and it's still going to be disproportionately some people paying higher. So lowering the bills is not the coup de grace, the big thing that we need to focus on. It needs to be more, how do we get these that are paying excessive amounts of utilities, because I live in an energy efficient house. So mine is not as bad as my neighbors. So how do we get them to where they're in the right range for what nobody should be having a $600, $700 utility bill. And they have them all the time in little old small houses. So one of those things that I'm thinking when it comes to lowering bills, that we as a board should be focused on that throughout our discussions. And as we're talking about budgets and when we talk about conservation and all of those things. So that necessarily doesn't have to be a separate line item. I don't even, to be honest with you, think we should show that on a work plan as lowering bills, because then the community has an opportunity to challenge them. What are y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? They don't need a bunch of discussions on that. We need to consider that the bills are disproportionately higher for certain demographic of folk. That's one thing. When I'm gonna get back to environmental justice, and I'm gonna tell you why. The environmental justice has so much to do with historically disenfranchised communities, people who are in poor and rural areas who feel like forever they've been dumped on top of. And during the summer, we talked a lot about what that looked. We had some charrettes. I'm sure there are going to be some people running for office that's going to bring that up, and they're going to talk about it like it's a priority issue, which is an opportunity for us to now address that like we said we would. And when I say we, I put myself out there a lot, and I intend to do what I say. And we said that that will become a priority because it has to do with us running our business, but it has to do with us imposing on communities and their land, and how we should create now the opportunity to build a partnership with our communities, so that when we need to develop in these areas, there's not so much pushback and there's not a protest. Because during the summer when we were looking out there at Archer, it got ugly. Yes. And people started popping up, and we need to get rid of the ugly, not because we don't want to look bad, but because we need to do our due diligence, not just for the utility, but for the people that we serve as well.
And I think it's a very important issue. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to run real quick. There's a couple things. So Carla, again, I would say if you can, give us some specifics.
I
We
will
want
do
to
it.
either direct the UAB or direct GRU to what's the next step there. So just to run through these before I do have to run and get in a lot of trouble. Your UAB participation in the IRP, that's a longer discussion, but I think it's a really good discussion that we should be having, because it was when the IRP comes out and then we start asking all these questions, and you see that we just went through all this. So we would like to have some input there. The solar curtailment. This is one that's been brought before us a number of times, somewhat aggressively at times, but as someone in the industry, I understand the frustration with that. I would like to see GRU do a presentation on the issue.
So let me just speak to that one real quick. So Lisa has done quite a bit of work on this, and I think we would be prepared to be able to do this even at April meeting.
Okay.
So this is something we could put on the agenda for discussion at the April meeting.
It's on the natural gas rebates. I know the last time we met, Claudia seemed to go, we don't waste too much time on this, just get rid of it. I mean, is that GRU's position? Do we want to do, because I was like, well, why don't we do an analysis to see what's the net impact on GRU? But if GRU wants to make that recommendation, I'm not gonna.
So I think it's something we can present on and bring a recommendation.
I think that's the most efficient way to move it right through.
And it's always acceptable for GRU to say it's too small for it to spend a ton of time on. We're okay with this.
I wouldn't say that.
Let me, what is this, natural gas?
So right now,
What is the based on?
okay, so right now, GRU has natural gas rebates.
Yeah.
Primarily to incentivize builders outside of GRU's electrical utility to sign up, because that allows us, GRU, the city, to expand natural gas.
Business development.
As business development. It also costs money within the territory, you're converting people from electricity to natural gas. I struggle with it because it goes counter to our, zero carbon by 2045. So that's why.
Okay, I guess I would.
Yeah, it's not a big number.
I brought as an illustration tonight, a postcard that my partner received in the mail a few days ago, which is from GRU offering a rebate to my partner to switch over to natural gas. So if you'd like to look at that, this is good. I'll pass it, this is a good example.
Mr. Chair, wait, before you run, let me just say one sentence. Carl had talked about the question of reducing the cost of electric service. That has been an ongoing issue that's been brought up over and over and over again. She felt that it needed to be sort of in the background, but I'd like to really address it head on in terms of trying to come to recommendations. From what I know, there are only two really viable options. One is time of day pricing. The other one is very low rates for small consumption like we had in the past. There may be other options available for other utilities, but I'm unavailable or unknowledgeable about the GRU to try other than those two things. But I'd like to see us really schedule an hour on those two topics and really get down and dirty and talk about brass tacks, because that has been an open sore on this board for a long time.
So to your point, that would be one to bring up during member comments to say, I think we should do a workshop and we're going to talk about these things and we want GRU staff to prepare this so that we can have a good full.
A real full body discussion.
So that would be my recommendation on, and touching on environmental justice, which I feel passionately about also. If there are specifics in the same way, because you said it's not something I appreciate what you're saying, we have to be careful getting into, but my mind, as I know a number of you guys, I go to groups like CWC, Community Weatherization Coalition, to say, well, maybe are there ideas that we, because we're supposed to be experts, can come up with to recommend from our point of view like that, to say, I think the reason I support CWC is because that's one of the really good groups that gets into low income, into rental houses, and so many people as a way to help address low energy. And I know
Right.
you're passionate about this, you're not gonna fight me.
So one of the things, and one of the reasons why I speak the way I speak is from crawling around the floor in these houses as a volunteer for CWC. And so one of the things that I notice is that we can take the trash can off and we can clean the coils. And all their bill is gonna go down. Yes, we're saving them money, but only by looking at their bill and saying, take this off, take this off, take that off. We're not, and then a lot of them don't use, they don't receive a lot of power, but they burn a lot of power, if that makes sense. And so a lot of the issues that we're talking about, and CWC, Lord knows, if they were not there to buffer, we will really be in trouble. So they are really important. And Mr. Fletcher, I wasn't suggesting at all that we put it in the background. I was suggesting that we make it a part of every last discussion that we do, that it doesn't have to necessarily be a side item. We need to recognize, just like when I talk about environmental justice, I'm going to be talking about lowering bills. When I put in anything that has to do with solar or whatever, we're going to be talking about what it looks like and what opportunity we can create to lower. So I wasn't talking about putting it in the background. I'm talking about blowing it up across everything that we do. It should always be a consideration.
Mr. Chair,
I just wanna make that clear.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Oh, yeah, you did better than me, Fletcher.
Before you leave, do you have availability and interest in going to APPA this year?
What are the dates?
June 10th, the 15th.
No?
I'll be coming back. I'll be coming back, I'm sure.
Okay, so that's no.
Unfortunately.
Okay, all right, good. I
appreciate
just
that.
wanted to like.
You have this one. Okay.
Okay.
So general manager, you're still moving us down this list here, correct? And basically, if we can sort of focus, what we're trying to do is tonight is to fill out column D, correct? For our list here, and decide as we've done if some of these need to be removed from the list or whatnot, right?
So yeah, I think you're trying to prioritize, you're trying to think through what are things you all need to do to prioritize these, to provide more information. It's up to you all. You don't have to get through the whole
Okay.
list. You could just decide, hey, we want to focus on these next couple things over the next couple of months, and here's the clear direction we want to give you, or hey, we want to think about this, and at the next meeting, we'll provide more clarity on the.
I think Member Rockwell said something that was really important. we're getting ready to meet with the commission soon. And I think one of the things before we go through the think tank and what are we gonna do is to make sure that what we're thinking lines up like Fletcher and Barry and all said, make sure it's lining up, or at least it is something that they want, even if they haven't thought of it yet, they may look at it and say, you know what, we didn't think about that, but yes, let's do it that way. You know what I'm saying? And then we can always add suggestions, like as I talk about environmental justice, I, for one, will want to reach directly out to the NAACP Environmental Justice Committee. You know what I'm saying? And just have some other conversations. So when I sit and say we need to prioritize this, I'm not saying what I want Carla to do, but I'm saying what I think would be helpful for us to make some discussions and some decisions to solve or help mediate this problem that we're having in that particular area. So it's more than just us just throwing some information. I want it to be able to do something. So I want to put a little bit more thought into reaching out to people like Inquanda Ja and those that are out in Roberta Gassmeyer. I wouldn't put anything in there without reaching out to those folks who are paying attention to this every day. And then the commission. Robin was going to say
I'm
something.
sorry, I just wanted to, for the new folks on the board, these things that we already have built into the matrix are things that the board has been brought up over time. We have a member comment at the end of the meeting and somebody will say, oh, I'd like to see that. And so we're trying to clean up things that have been lingering and get you guys to decide if you want to. If that really is an issue you want to discuss, if the whole board agrees on having these things discussed, and if you do, give us some clarity so that we know what we're gonna need to bring back to you. These are just things that have been lingering for years or months that you guys have been asking us to.
One suggestion I have is just look at 2 or 3 of these things, and narrow it down to 2 or 3 of these things to over the next several months. You know, instead of trying to look at all of them, you know, I think we're going to get lost.
It sounds like based on what General Manager has said, we have 2 items that are pretty much ready, will be ready to come back to us fairly quickly, and that's the solar curtailment and the natural gas rebates. We should be ready to deal with those as soon as next month, correct?
Definitely the solar curtailment, probably the natural gas as well. I would need to just check on that, but.
So that we pull too.
A question on the natural gas rebates, there was, and this was some of the holdup. There was a question about whether we could bifurcate rebates and not give rebates in the city, but give rebates outside of the city limits. That's what, if that's still a question, then that I still need to finish my research on that.
Well, and to clarify that, I think it was to give rebates to non-GRU customers as an inducement to become a customer, not necessarily differential treatment of different GRU customers. That's because I think that was kind of where we were going with the conversation.
Is that still a question? Because I think I heard something different as in staff just, are you going to recommend not doing rebates?
The way it was brought up when we had the initial conversation was that wasn't a possibility. Legal had said that was not a possibility. Because there were some of us here that were maybe open to considering a bifurcation of the natural gas rebates. But if it was all or nothing, then we were going to decide on all or nothing. So I think that sort of nuance would help us answer that question. But especially for some of the newer folks that maybe weren't involved in the entire conversation, if that is feasible.
So my advice to Ed, I can share that with you all at a regular meeting, was that I didn't think you could do it. I think it's would be something that the Public Service Commission would look at. I never finished a written report, and I thought that's what what this board wanted to see was a written analysis. So if that's what you want, then we might be able to do it by May. I don't know yet.
So did I capture it? So to confirm whether rebates could be isolated to non-GRU customers only. And so that would be something that Lisa can look at. Okay, what's the effort for that? And then
10 hours. And I probably have maybe 10 or 20.
answer that question.
And as long as we're talking about what we should discuss when, I just have a question. Tony, do you know, when we would be looking at having GRU set a contract for the next IRP?
So yeah, so that would be very soon. So right now, we're trying to figure out what that will look like, and particularly the public outreach side of it. So we're trying to be much more engaging with the public as we move forward, and so that would be the first step.
So it's really coming right on. So in that case, we should schedule that, you know, really right away then.
And schedule what exactly are you thinking to schedule?
Well, quite some time back, maybe, I don't know, almost a year ago or something, we had a document that I actually edited, I compiled it, of the things that the board had gone on record saying that they wanted to see as part of the IRP next time. But that kind of got waylaid because we didn't have any activity on signing a new contract to generate a new IRP. But you're saying that that's really coming right up.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would like to see us schedule a discussion to review that again, you know, and then see what we said earlier. We have new voices now. We have maybe changes, I don't know. But we ought to look at what we had earlier and see if we still want to go with those ideas or have additional ideas or change or whatever.
And you said that you had a process that you were gonna do some outtakes into the community to engage them in the IRP. Okay, so would that then, is there a way for us to perhaps combine the discussion so that we're doing some engagement around the IRP and environmental? So that we don't have to redo a couple of things if you think that'd be too hectic, or all you gotta do is put bed on it. But if she
will be a part of it. So you're saying to bring in.
I was just
environmental-
thinking, because what again, just trying to be sensitive to staff time, to actually get the engagement, to your timelines that you have, the IRP, and if the city is recommended and we are trying to move to a more inclusive model, when we start doing those things, I'm trying to figure out, is it then, do we do this the way we did the GRU in the neighborhood where we notice the meeting and then they're able to come to the community engagement meeting, so we don't have to have 2 or 3 different things, where we're able to come to the meeting and engage with the community of those processes? Or I'm trying to figure out, is Mr. Crow asking that we try to hurry up and have this discussion where we can make a recommendation to you what that time frame looks like, what's the feasibility of us, you know, having a robust discussion as a board in a workshop, coming together, making some thing, or are you saying, let's pull some of our old archives, find out what we asked for the IRP, send that out, see what suggestions people have, collect that information back, and then we can do some recommendations individually? I'm trying to get a clear idea of what it is, Fletcher, you're trying to get us to do. And is it going to be something that is going to be relevant during the time frame before the IRP is going to be finalized and decided?
I know I'm actually another question. What is IRP?
It's
That's a great
Chair,
question.
it's an integrated resource plan. It's basically what's your plan in the next 20 to 30 years for power generation.
Okay, that's fine. Just finally, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, sorry, we definitely took the effort.
So,
So this is an interesting discussion because a lot of the IRP is really staff-driven and is going to be a procurement process. So the UAB and the city commission should not be involved in that portion of it. But on the other hand, the policy implications of it is what the UAB should be able to weigh in on. For instance, the nuclear policy that the city commission has set is the 2045 net zero goal. So I'm just going to caution you as you're giving advice to staff that we focus on the policies and not the day-to-day operations of the utility and procurement and the selection process.
Absolutely. So for this, so that we don't beat it to death, because I think we're on the verge of kind of beating it to death. I agree with, remember, tell me your name again? Dean, to pick out a few things that we would say priority, not that all of them are not important, just prioritize 1, 2, and 3, leave everything else on the list, but just say this is our focus. We talked a lot about this being budget season, knowing that whether we like it or not, we're gonna have to focus on the budget over the next few meetings and get that part down. I, again, am suggesting environmental justice, that's left over from summer of last year. And then I don't have a particular item after that.
Well, I wanted to clarify on the environmental justice issue. I was one of the folks that asked to have this put on our work plan, and when I did, it was as a result of a conversation, of actually a presentation that some folks out in Archer that are involved with Sierra Club had done for me personally. And I was so impressed by the presentation. Basically, my ask was that these folks come and give a similar presentation to us to kind of lead us into a bigger conversation about thinking about environmental justice, integrating that into building project decisions that the utility would make. And so those folks have agreed to do it. We just need to agree to have them, which we did when we put this on the work plan, and come up with a time frame for when we want to do that, so that I can reach back out to them and coordinate with Robin to get them here on a time that works for us. So if that is something that folks are ready to kind of move forward on, I'm happy to reach back out to them. Carla mentioned some people that she'd like to talk to as well, and maybe we can go ahead and get that on an agenda in the next few months and have that conversation soon.
Yep. So, and still, Tony, just to keep into our framework, that stuff that Jason just said, along with my final things, we'll get that to you through Robin. And that way we can go ahead on and we can move that up and we can start planning that out. And that's another thing that we can go on. So that's great.
So, Mr. Chair, the thing I would say with that is that we want the board to approve, so.
Right.
So I think coming out of the meeting tonight, like what I'm sort of envisioning a little bit is, so we got a lot of ideas on here. It's some folks fleshing out some of these to give a more clear objective. And then at the next meeting, you are approving what you have in there. So I think folks can send in more ideas. We can kind of add them to this. And then at the next meeting, you can solidify and take action on some of those different thoughts and ideas.
Yep.
What we probably would want you as a board tonight to say is, well, we want you to do the solar curtailment thing at the next meeting, and you guys vote to have that, and we'll schedule that and put that on the next agenda. And then the other thing we'll put on that next agenda is just coming back to this matrix, and we'll finalize it and taking action on the priorities.
We can do that in April and get it to the commission before our May meeting.
If the next meeting is going to be on budget, then we're really talking about the second meeting of April, a month from today.
So April, what is?
Your regular
Our regular meeting.
meeting that you have on Thursday, whatever that date is, that can be whenever, you guys, if you want to put this on here. The budget meeting is going to be a special meeting on April 16th.
It's not our regular meeting, it's
It's not
just a
the
budget.
regular.
So we're going to have 3 meetings in April?
Get ready, sir, get ready.
So does somebody want to go ahead and make that motion to have the solar curtailment as?
I'm sorry, you can't really take a vote because this is a workshop. You can just, consensus say, without objection, we'll put this on.
So we need to schedule that for the next one.
Right, any issues with that, any problems with that?
And just
Is
as
that good enough for you?
That's good. The other thing I would say is, so we can send this out to members, then if you all have more work to do individually, we can assemble it also at the next meeting. This is updated with any other additional information or discussion that you have, so that you can vote on it at the next meeting.
sound like,
And then similarly, I guess, or since we talked about this in a similar way, is the board okay with myself and Carla reaching out to our contacts that want to come back and give a presentation on the BJ topic and having that agenda in the next couple of months as well?
You're saying environmental
Justice.
environmental justice.
Any concerns?
Okay.
So Carla and I will follow up with that, and we'll put folks in touch with Robin that would be available and interested for scheduling that presentation. Great, thank you.
Before we move on from environmental justice, Tony, I think, were you going to talk about a new committee that the subcommittee that the commission
Yes.
has?
Yeah, so just as you all are talking about the topic, there's a new subcommittee, and actually I was trying to look it up and I couldn't find it.
is it seated already?
So, yeah, so there's already a committee for environmental justice that has been formed. So I'm not gonna be able to talk much to it. That's what I was trying to look up, is kind of who's on it and when I think they scheduled their first meeting. I just don't know. I don't know much more about that. I know it's city commissioners are on the meeting. And so I'm just trying to think through, like, is that something you all would want to have participate in some way, and that type of thing. So I brought that up with Robin when I saw this on the list is, okay, if you all are working on that topic, should it dovetail into that?
They could definitely be pulled in.
Sounds like we need communication on that.
So maybe what I could do is I could provide more information on what that purpose of that subcommittee is, who the members are, when they meet, and all that. I can get that updated at the next meeting.
I'd be happy to follow up with them. So what I'd like to do is maybe do one more quick ask, if anybody has any last comments or anything that they want to make. I think we've got enough that we've kind of planned for the next few months. We're going to revisit this work plan. But if anybody has any last comments before we move into our last item on the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Well, we've heard that the planning for the IRP is coming right up. So I think there's a certain need to hop on that right away. So on that same night where we could have the environmental justice, I'd like to schedule half an hour on what we've already spoken to for input for the IRP, and then, see if there's other changes or additions or subtractions or whatever, to see if those same topics can go ahead and have an input on what's going to be done for the next IRP.
General Manager, how does this sound? What if we had a presentation at an upcoming meeting that was basically, especially for the newer members, a rehash of the previous IRP, an update on the planning process, and then an opportunity for existing members to provide feedback on what we got from the last IRP? Does that sound feasible?
Yeah, so we could give an overview of what an IRP is. We could talk about, like you said, what was in the last IRP, and then what our plan is going forward on this IRP, schedule, when it'll start, those types of things.
And is that, are folks okay with that as an agenda item coming up relatively soon? Okay, good. All right, any last comments from board members about anything on this work plan before we move on? Especially on your folks, maybe, who are questions you might have, and anything that.
I don't have it right now, so.
I just have one more that I wanted to talk about. We've talked about the conservation rebates and pushing that back some. And I think I'm in agreement with that, but the point I want to make is we've talked about this in the context of specific rebates. Like, we're gonna have a rebate for electric automobiles, or we're gonna increase funding for LEAP or whatever. To me, I think we actually need to step back and have a really big picture conversation about a conservation program at a utility and what should be the goals and metrics of success for that kind of a policy, and looking at peer utilities to look at that. And a really good place to start for that, if anybody hasn't already checked out the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, they put out a conservation scorecard every year rating utilities all over the country on this topic. And so to me, kind of taking that step back and having that big picture conversation, I think would really benefit us a lot in terms of where we want to move with this, rather than getting into the weeds right away with like this rebate or that rebate or no rebates at all. So that's the the one thing I wanted to say. This is my big topic, and I really want us to engage with it, but I want us to do it in a way that is useful. Unless there's any other board member comments, I was going to see if our patient community member would like to comment about what we've been talking about here before we move on.
More excellent comments, Nancy Darren. Very much. Lisa said it was another 10 hours to look at the bifurcated natural gas rebate. It should be an all or nothing discussion. My stance on natural gas, and this is encouraging stranded assets, and it's taking money to put in new infrastructure that we could be using for far, far more important things. So I think to use staff time to look at a subset of that kind of a rebate, we could much better use time to look at how do we get rid of this and never add any more new infrastructure that is going to be stranded and is impacting health and the end of the planet at this point. But these are, I think the big picture discussions are really important that you've commented on and integrated into different aspects of this. What if we don't look at different rate structures and looking at additional streams of revenue as part of the IRP, the conservation, whatever. We're stuck in an old model that has been hurting us since 2007, when we really took conservation seriously and renewables seriously. And until we really look at how are we going to fully realize the promise and the efforts that have been made since the mid-2000s and how brilliant this utility is. We're just folding ourselves into a rate structure and a limited focus on how to get revenue that does not serve us anymore. And it behooves us to integrate that kind of a discussion into these other ones. It's time.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me that time. I appreciate it.
All right, so sure. So the last formal item on our agenda here is the APPA conference. And did you, Robin, want to kind of introduce us on that topic?
Sure. Every year we budget for 2 members if they want to attend the APPA National Conference. It's a very good conference that has lots of information about utility topics nationwide and general topics. And then they have some pre-conference seminars that really get into details about some things. And I think that would be in your packet, you have the brochure showing you what things are going to be talked about there this year. The utility will pay, if you choose someone to go, we will help you make your travel arrangements. We will pay for your, the registration, we'll pay for your hotel. And then the thought is that whoever goes can bring back what they've learned and talk to the whole board about it. Because we obviously would be cost prohibitive to send everyone. So. And if anybody has any specific questions that I can answer, I'll be happy to.
So what I thought I might do, just to make this as quick as possible, is just do a quick go around and see of the folks, we already heard from Barry, but of the other folks that are here, who would be available, interested in going, so we have the full pool of people, potential people that would go, and then we can kind of decide from there. So basically, we'll go around and either am interested in going, definitely cannot go, or I need to look at my calendar and get back to you. Is that fair enough?
And just to remind you, it's June 10th through the 15th, and it's in Nashville this year.
Start, Carla?
So I know I've been to the conference before and trying to leave, space for new people to go. But this year, I'm really interested, post-COVID. I learned the first year I went, I had an opportunity to sit into some spaces with folk that literally work in the public. And some people, well, we can't afford to send a lot of people bring delegations and community groups and those type of people. So I was able to do 2 roles, learn about the power, and then learn what people in the community and how they were working with the utility. I would love to go have some more of those discussions post-COVID. I have the time available. So, but if somebody knew or just have a burning down in their soul to have the experience overall, because I'm literally going looking for something specific, and it's a way to help me gather some research from all over the place without traveling all over the place.
Tim?
I am interested. I realistically don't know if this would be logistically possible for me to take 5-day weekend, basically. So if other people could definitely have first dibs.
Okay, Fletch?
Well, I went last year and I really learned a lot. I was disappointed that I was never scheduled in a UAB meeting to tell everybody about what I learned, because I thought I learned really a lot of very valuable information. I would be willing to go again, but I think I should say that I would really be very happy to have somebody else go. I mean, new members that haven't gone yet, things like that. But if we are scraping around and people don't want to come, I'll say, well, I'll pitch it.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I'm not available.
Okay, if I could just throw out one more thing that I forgot to mention. The conference starts on June 10th, but that is, there are no classes or anything that day. It's just a day of giving where people volunteer their time. So you really wouldn't have to go that day unless you just wanted to. And then the last day, there's a closing breakfast, just a general thank you for coming. This is what we said, and this is what we're looking forward to next year. So you wouldn't even really have to stay that day unless you just wanted to. So that kind of shortens the timeline. That's helpful for everybody.
Does that change anything?
No, that's not.
Doesn't sleep in the pot, no.
Just get my feet wet in this, and I think I should wait a little while and let me try to figure out where I'm going to this board, but,
It's a great way to get your feet wet.
yeah.
Something to consider. I mean, it's already
Yeah.
a whole pool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there something you'd like to maybe think about a little bit? Because I don't think we have to decide tonight, do we?
We don't, but we need to maybe by the next meeting because there are deadlines for.
If nobody else wants to go, I will be willing to, but like I said, I've just been on this board for, I don't know, a little, whatever it is. It's just something that, I would think twice before,
Well, last year, the 2 folks that went with myself and Fletcher, who were the 2 newest members at the time. Yeah.
I was
And,
Brandon too.
and kind of created the space for the new folks to go specifically for that reason.
Okay, well,
So-
I will be available if it comes out.
Okay.
So I don't know, I mean, to me, based on what I've heard, it sounds to me like the ideal slate would be Carla and Dean to go to this. I know Fletcher and I would both love to go. We just went last year, but I think you two, it's been a while for you. You've never been, so
Okay.
what do folks think about that? Okay,
Yep, sounds good.
okay. And if anything, if you all check your calendar and you realize that something crazy is gonna prevent you or whatever, then just let us know as soon as possible, because it sounds like you've got a couple of pitch hitters. that we have to get.
And we would very much like to schedule you guys when you get back to debrief us on all the things we've learned.
And I did my debriefing a little bit different, so there were some things I learned that were relevant to my community. And I set some charrettes up and some lunch and learns, and we talked about that. One of them was being how, we thought that, GRU was a purple giraffe or something. But then I learned a lot about public power in general. And so I had to educate the community as to we're asking for the wrong things. I also came back and I had some discussions with staff as to events department and the community engagement piece, and was looking at ways that other public power associations were engaging their communities in the decision-making process where it was not disruptive to them. And a lot of them don't have the dynamic of sunshine always. Let me just throw that out there. So, and then also I came back to the general manager and I made several appointments with him to talk about some things that I thought I should bring directly to him for him to say. And I've seen some of them trickle down. He also connected me with different leadership staff so that I can flesh out some things that we were, Mr. Shepherd and others and I sat down and talked, Tara Thomas, I think. We sat down and talked about some things I learned. So, but yeah, to do a general presentation, I'd be more than willing to put something together. Now I got to make me a photo diary. That's it, because I'm bringing back pictures, doing PowerPoints.
Last year, one of the really emotional parts of the APPA were the reports out of Texas where everything had gone to hell in a handbasket when natural gas had been cut off and these utilities had to cut the service because they didn't have fuel for their power. It was really very emotional, very, very moving.
That's why we diversify, Fletcher. So we don't have that problem, diversify.
And actually, I want to ask General Manager if GRU is planning some staff in APPA this year, because I know for Fletcher and I, we were kind of actively looking to find GRU staff there last time, and we're kind of disappointed because GRU was talked about at APPA, but we didn't see any staff there.
So I believe so, but I don't want to say yes. I think with the COVID years, things have changed a little bit. So I'll let you know. I'll let you all know at the next meeting.
We had a city commissioner last year.
That's right, that's right. And I'll also just lastly on this topic, just kind of second what Fletcher was saying. Like, to me, $8,000 is not a lot of money in the big picture of GRU, but if the utility is going to invest that money in sending folks, I hope that, we as a board and the utility will be really proactive, because I felt the same way Fletcher did, coming back last year with a lot of ideas and not sure what to do with it. I should have followed your model and done what Carla did, because I just felt like a lot of things that we brought back that maybe could have been useful sort of felt like a wayside. So.
Well, and I'll say, Mr. Chair, if we schedule that, I can make sure there's other staff here to hear that feedback as well. So yeah, if we get that on the calendar, I think that'd be good.
Great. Unless there's any other board comment on that, I think that the member or citizen comment on this topic.
Yes. So Fletcher, if there's any years to go, this is it. The agenda is incredible. I would love to go. Today, let people, do you have to be a board member or something?
No.
We don't. It's more.
I Right, but anyway, but I was going to suggest that, again, this is a year for staff. I would love to see you go, Tony, and some of the staff. And also, I think we need city commissioners, and you get a discount if you send a delegation. So it's cheaper over 4 people, I think. So it would give a body of knowledge at such a critical time in this whole transition to inform and help us coordinate and strategize a lot more strongly, I think. But as hard as GRU staff has worked and the support that can be offered and all the federal funds that are available now, that if we know how to take advantage of them, we can help fund a lot of these things that we need. So I fully support that.
You have to wear a bright yellow dress though. We had a city commissioner. When you look at her, you had to wear dark glasses.
All right, well, I think that settles that agenda item, so we'll move on to member comment. And we just, any members have any comment at this point that hasn't already been addressed? Stephen?
I thought there's a meeting that's going to, meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, been very informative. You know, I thought, like I said, I'm getting my feet wet. This is a unique board I have been on. I remember a city boards in communities, and this one is unique. And dealing with the utilities, and I'll be here soon. Learning more about the approach that this group will take.
Anybody else, any other members?
I'd just like to follow up with what you said. You were talking about conservation, I guess, is the next topic there. It seems to me we ought to schedule a whole meeting on that one topic. Have a series of presentations and reports and things on that, all circulating around that one topic.
Yeah, I'm actually doing my own homework on this topic, and I would definitely be bringing back to the board a proposal to get like a personal presentation or something.
Maybe we could spend, 2.5 hours on that one topic.
So I'll keep this brief, but I do want to take advantage of having some legal expertise here tonight. I was just recently traveling out west and actually had the pleasure of interacting with some friends out there who work in the utility industry in different parts of the country. And one of the things that I was made aware of is that in other utilities in other states, there are existing programs where folks that are means tested, low income, can actually receive discounted rates on their utilities from the utility. And I've been told that that is not a possibility in Florida. And I just wanted to find out sort of what the legal basis, if that's a question that can easily be answered, like what the legal basis is for that.
There's two. First of all, contractually through our bonds, we're not allowed to charge different rate differentials. So that would be a problem with our bonds. And then the Public Service Commission does not allow us to treat classes of customers differently. So we would be brought before the Public Service Commission and made to correct our rates so that everyone is in a class is treated.
I knew you'd be able to provide really succinct, fantastic answer to that question. All right, if nobody has any other member comment, Carla, do you have any? Okay. We do have one more space on the agenda for citizen comment. Ms. Jeremy, do you have anything else to add?
It's World Water Day, and I want to thank Tony Cunningham for and all the staff that has supported the quality of our water and the conservation measures that have been implemented through the years. And then the great public service campaign of the young professionals. With the war in Ukraine and this time in the country, in the globe, the whole issue of resources and natural gas and conservation are really coming to a head. And having awareness of how are we going to stay resilient? How do we keep the diversity, the local control, really value the biomass plant, really value distributed community solar things that are going to help protect us? I know there's a lot of concern with cybersecurity right now, with no lithium, no palladium, no oil, no natural gas. And so what we have going for us this year is really good. And are you integrated with both the emergency management folks for the short-term stuff, but is this a discussion going on within staff and all of how are we going to be really resilient given the magnitude of natural resource decline and shortages that are coming down the pipe really fast. You know, we're at the end of the oil and gas era, whether we like it or not. So I think we have a big head start, and whatever we can all do together to hold on to that. I'm really glad APPA has so many pertinent topics that I think will be helpful in that. And I just hope we can have the kind of dialogues that happened tonight. It's just such a gift and a pleasure to have this atmosphere of collegiality and trying to figure it all out. So thank you all very much for all the service everybody's provided.
So it looks like our next meeting is on April the 14th, and Robin, I do just want to remind you, if you would, it looks like the list of UAB members on the front of the agenda. Okay, all right, good deal. Well, thank you, and thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight, and we'll see everybody on the 14th. Thank you.